So actually, before we get to Rumi, here's what I would like to start with. Our friend Mary Oliver. Everybody knows Mary Oliver now. She's a favorite of people who are required with some frequency in their lives to give sermons or talks about anything and everything in the spiritual realm. Everybody claims Mary is one of theirs. So this is me saying she's a really good Zen Buddhist. And my friend Mary Ann Buddy would say she's a really good Episcopalian. And if you think she sounds like a really good Catholic or a really good Jew, you're on the right track. On meditating, sort of. Some of you know this. Meditation, so I've heard, is best accomplished if you entertain a certain strict posture. Frankly, I prefer just to lounge under a tree. So why should I think I could ever be successful? Some days I fall asleep or land in that even better place, half asleep, where the world, spring, summer, autumn, winter, flies through my mind in its hearty ascent and its uncompromising descent. So I just lie like that, while distance and time reveal their true attitudes. They never heard of me, never will, or ever need to. Of course, I wake up finally thinking, how wonderful to be who I am, made out of earth and water, my own thoughts, my own fingerprints, all that glorious temporary stuff. She's a little more user-friendly, I think, for some of us than scriptural voices or spiritual poets. I certainly consider her to be a spiritual poet, at least oftentimes I do. But this is the verse we're talking about today. From Rumi. We are the mirror, as well as the face in it. We are tasting the taste this minute of eternity. We are both pain and what cures pain. We are the sweet, cold water and the jar that pours. One more time. We are the mirror as well as the face in it. We are tasting the taste this minute of eternity. We are both pain and what cures pain. We are the sweet cold water and the jar that pours. So, I've talked about this verse a number of times in my teaching, speaking life. I expect I'll talk about it many more times. Probably because I need that much reminding of the simple truths that Rumi expresses there. All of you have heard that teaching in some variation or other, regardless of your meditation experience, regardless of your faith tradition, regardless of how contemplative practice was introduced to you. You know that teaching in some form or another. Maybe the way that Rumi expresses it moves you. Maybe the way Mary Oliver expresses it moves you. They both move me. I read a section in a Jack Kornfield book years ago. I forget which book. Where he mentioned looking at himself in the mirror in the morning, the way you do when you're brushing your teeth or washing your face, and describing the experience so many of us have had of all of a sudden being surprised at the age of the reflection. Oh my goodness, how did that happen? And he said something really interesting, which, I don't know, is an ancient teaching, not new to anyone here. But it was my first time really encountering it expressed in such a way. And he said, it's funny that the thing I'm looking at is aging, but the one who's looking isn't. I'm looking at the reflection of a body that's older than it was yesterday. I was startled by the age of the reflection because in my heart, I expected to see a 16-year-old or a 20-year-old or a 30-year-old or whatever. And instead there was this gray-haired old man, staring at him. But I'd never really heard it described that the one who's watching is outside of the field of time. That the witness is peering into the world of matter, the world of aging, sickness, death, separation, the human experience. I'd been exposed to that idea growing up in the Catholic tradition because we have as our archetypal image in the Christian tradition the story of a Jesus of Nazareth who wakes up to his eternal nature at some point. He's described to us as being a human being, fully human, wholly human, utterly human. Oh, and also completely divine, completely awakeness. Right? His revelation, I and the Father are one. I am human, and I am also. And so the math never really matched up for me as a little kid. Well, you can't be 100% of two opposite things. You could be 50%, perhaps. So I always just translated that to mean, you're half of one thing and half of another. That's what makes sense to a 9-year-old who's bored during Mass. That's also what makes sense to a 29-year-old who's bored during Mass, in my case. But at some point, I actually understood, and maybe it was Jack Kornfield's passage that kind of forced that math into a different organ. I've come to realize that this beautiful organ that lives up here between the ears, so gifted and such a sharp knife, good at doing so many things, can't do the math of being 100% of two different things. But the organ that lives a foot lower has no problem doing that kind of math. No problem. Holding opposites down here, not a problem. And so I sit with that koan. I think that counts as a koan. Some of you know the word koan. Something that this organ thinks is a paradox or an impossibility, but this organ recognizes as being deeply true. The koan of our awakened nature and the koan of our human nature. They both are happening today. And so I'm offering my thoughts on this short verse because it's essentially what we're doing today. You've come here to bear witness, and there's nothing to bear witness to today, of course, other than yourself. Here you are. The scattered nature you brought, the restless nature you brought, the content nature you brought, the part that's worried about a child or a parent or a pet, the part of you that can hardly wait for the retreat to be over, the part of you who hopes it never ends. You've got a body that's showing up with its back pain and its cold toes. You have emotions that are showing up as longing, desire, fear, anger, grasping, confusion, happiness, entertainment. You're watching the show. If you had a piece of paper next to you and it recorded each of the distinct emotions you were able to recognize in the past 2 hours, you'd probably have quite a list. You'd probably have quite a list already in the past 2 hours. What a show. What a show. Right? Further, if you had the wherewithal to write down everything you'd been thinking about, all of your thoughts that orbited all those feelings that came from ideas about the past or future, fears and joys, attachments, desires. What a list you'd have in only 2 hours. 2 hours of human experience. It's incredibly dense, isn't it? 2 hours of human experience is just unbelievably dense. Wow. So what are we talking about? We're talking about earth and water, thoughts, fingerprints, and all that glorious temporary stuff. And you know it's going, gone, because you're watching it. You're literally watching it show up and change and leave. Moment after moment, you're watching it show up and change and leave. That's amazing, isn't it? It's all temporary. You're watching it. Just like in the mirror, you're just watching the face get a little older. And then you're watching your feelings about how that shows up for you, all your thoughts about how that shows up for you, your relationship with your humanity, your karma, that glorious temporary stuff we call karma. So this is our meditation experience. We are the mirror and the face in it. Oh, look at it. Look at it. And then we watch the dance, right? We watch how we identify with what we're experiencing. We identify with the body, with the cold toes, or the backache, the stiff knee. We think we are that. We watch ourselves become the anxiety, or the worry, or the happiness, or the desire, or the fear. We are that. I am that. I am scared. I am the one who is. I am the one who is. We watch that happen. And then we watch the thoughts come, and there's a story there. Oh, the thing we are so scared of, the thing we want so badly, the way we want to be thought of, the way we think of others. Can you feel it? We just see it. We see it, and we are it, and we are it. And then the light comes on, as it always does when we are doing contemplative practice. And we go, oh, wait, I'm sitting. Right. Meditation. Right. Where's my body? Where's my breath? You know that moment? You're the daydreamer. You are the daydream. You're in it. And then all of a sudden the light goes on. Oh, right. I remember. And then there's that flash, that miracle, where all of a sudden I'm not the story. I'm the one watching the story. I'm not the feeling. I'm the one naming and noticing the feeling. I'm not the body. I'm the one who's watching its sensations arise and change. Oh my goodness, I'm the mirror and the face in it. We are tasting the taste this minute of eternity. That's quite a statement. We tend to think of the word eternity from our egoic mind. Our egoic mind is a good friend to us. Our egoic mind is a wonderful servant, a powerful tool. But it tends to think of everything in its own way, and so it tends to think of eternity as a really long stretch of time. That Dharma talk went on for eternity. Never read your Yelp reviews. If you give Dharma talks, never read your Yelp reviews. It just went on for eternity. He said the same thing over and over. Eternity, of course, is not a length of time. Eternity is not a length of time. Eternity is now and only now. And if you want to use egoic consciousness as a tool here, you certainly can. You can give your small self, you can give your ego self the project of trying to find the boundaries of the moment. Say, hey, see if you can find another moment other than now. See if you can find another moment. Go ahead, off you go. I mean, you're convinced, all of you, that you walked through the door at some point today in order to come into this room. Just find that. Just find that moment. You're 100% positive it existed, so find it. Here you go, 1, 2, 3, off you go. We're all convinced, we know for a fact this retreat is going to end at 3. It's going to end at 3 sharp, right? Because I'm a punctual young man. And so we're positive that that's going to happen in almost exactly 4 hours. In almost exactly 4 hours, that's going to happen. If you can find that, please let me know. Find that. It's a shocking truth to realize I have never experienced anything but now. Ever. Ever, ever, ever. No human being has ever experienced anything other than now. It's not possible. I have all sorts of ideas about 3 o'clock, whether I am dreading it or I'm looking forward to it, but I'm only having them now. And I have all sorts of rememberings, many rememberings about how I felt walking in that door, closing it behind me this morning, getting to see new faces, getting to see old familiar faces, some anxiety, some nervousness, some happiness, some excitement. I can only tell you about them now. You can only hear about them now. Ooh. Astronomers tell me that when they look out into the Andromeda galaxy, they're seeing something that happened 2 billion years ago. Right now. They're seeing it. This starts getting pretty weird for this organ, right? It's happening 2 billion years ago, but I'm seeing it now. What's going on, right? Spiritual teachers have been telling us for 4,000 years, there is only now. All moments are happening now. I'm not saying you don't have a past. You obviously do. You're carrying it with you. You're still scared of it. It's already gone, but you're still scared of it. You have a future. It's going to happen. All sorts of stuff's going to happen. It's just going to happen now. Because you've never, ever, ever had anything happen other than now. So we are tasting the taste. This minute of eternity. Do you see the juxtaposition there? This minute, eternity. Those are non-separate things. That's the same thing. This is what eternity tastes like right now. This is what it tastes like. This is what it tastes like. You don't have to strive to get to it. If someone says to you, what did you do earlier on today? You can say, I spent 6 hours on this meditation retreat. Ooh, what was it like? I tasted eternity. That's a Yelp review. I would like that. That would probably make people think it was a good thing, because it sounds deep, right? It's not a good thing or a bad thing. It's just the taste of eternity. Can you see how it's non-separate from your human experience? Because sometimes eternity tastes like heartbreak, and sometimes eternity feels like hope, and sometimes it has all tastes, and sometimes it has no tastes. Can you feel how dynamic that is? What is subject to time and what is not? Eternity is not a length of time, it is no time, it is all time, it is now. And so things are invited to get a little more serious with line 3. We are both pain and what cures pain. What a blessing he puts that in there. So we don't stay up in our imaginations, so we don't stay up in our conceptual thoughts about the nature of time and the nature of eternity and all these abstract spiritual constructs that are so fun to think about and they're so comfortable to think about. I love them for that reason. It's cool, right, to think, the Andromeda Galaxy, that was 15 billion years old or whatever the thing is, and I'm looking at it now. Wow, all moments are happening in this moment. Right, yeah. How do you feel? How do you feel? What happens after we die, I asked my teacher. How do you feel when you're asking me that question, he said. I've told that story many, many times. What a moment. What happens after we die? Great question. How do you feel as you're asking me that question? He wanted to see if I was trying to get away. And I was. Of course I was. I look in the mirror and I am scared. What happens after we die? I'm curious. It's a great question, but I'm scared. I don't know how that question is for you. But for me, that's a scary question based on the awareness I have that the container's going, gone. The nation is destroyed. Mountains and rivers remain. Yeah, that's right. It's going, gone. The body's going, gone. The things I identify with, my family, going, gone. My community, Flying Cloud Zen, Zen Buddhism, America, human culture, going, gone. The light we're sending out right now will be received sometime, maybe millions of years in the future, right? But it's still going, gone. It's going, gone. Wow. Can you feel it? That's why we have this relationship. That's why we have a relationship with this humanity. We wake up via the meditation practice to wait. I'm the one being watched and I'm the watcher. I'm the one being watched and I'm the watcher. I'm the one being, and one of those things is going, gone. The reflection keeps getting older. And I know its nature is to get sick and to get old and to die. That's its nature. Everything I can look at, this building, Aslan Institute, the trees, the weather today, this retreat, it's vanishing before my eyes. It's arising and it's changing and it's leaving. And so this third line demands, we should probably have a relationship. When I recognize I am pain, that sounds like the first noble truth. That doesn't sound like too much of a stretch for most of us. Most of us wake up, even on the best of days, and there's still part of us goes, here we go again. I don't know what's going to happen today. Here we go. Can you feel it? There's a little bit, maybe there's excitement in there for you if you're a morning person, whatever they are. I don't know. Maybe you guys are from the Andromeda Galaxy. You morning people. You can tell I am not one of you. I mostly wake up going, oh no, what will it be today? Please, God, protect me from, right? But to some degree, we both have both. We don't know what's going to happen. We just know it's going, gone. And so I offer the universal affirmation of your painful experience. I affirm it. I identify with it. I empathize with it. I know it. We come out screaming, as the poet says. All of us come out screaming. The first noble truth, we are pain. Oh, but the teaching, we are also what cures pain. That's harder to get to. That's much harder to get to. That's why when I asked, what happens after we die? And I was encouraged to reflect, how do you feel as you ask the question? I gave him an answer that was pain, the pain of fear. I'm aware that I'm going to die someday, and I'm scared of that. And so I want a story or an idea or a belief about something that happens then so that I will feel better now. Do you kind of get it? Like, oh, when you die, you go to heaven, and it's really, really nice. Or when you die, you go to nirvana, or some Buddhist equivalent of everything being fine. That's the story. Why do I want that story? I want that story because I don't want to experience what I'm experiencing now, which is I am scared. So I'm looking for a story there to kind of plug up that feeling. Like, you can stay down there. I don't have to entertain you, and I don't have to relate to you because I have an answer for you. Can you feel it? I was pushing away my experience. This is what human beings do all the time, every single day. So the question was, oh, you're scared as you ask that question? Yeah, of course. Of course you are. There's a human reflection in the mirror. Yeah. The next question was, how are you meeting your fear? How are you meeting your fear? Let's talk about the idea of what happens after we die. We can talk Buddhism and reincarnation or not reincarnation, all that kind of stuff later. That's wonderful. Speculative stuff is really, really cool. But what I want to make sure is that right now you have fear arising in you and that it's being met with open arms. Otherwise, all of our conversation is just avoiding that moment. That's the only thing that actually matters, is that your human experience is met by the part of you that can say, I welcome you in. It's okay. Can you feel there's my human nature arising, and there's also something else I'm being reminded of? There's a part of you that can completely hold that. Not a problem. Not a problem at all, because your actual nature, as the one looking in the mirror, is your infinite consciousness. It's okay. There's huge space there. Space beyond space. Time beyond time. Your eternity. There's so much room for the fear of one little mortal on one little planet and one little moment. It's okay. Plenty of space for that. Plenty of space there. And then the conversation about speculation can come from a completely different place, right? A place of imagination and curiosity, right? As opposed to, can you feel it when I make a fist, what that is? I just notice we do this all the time. I have a story about my family and what it really is to try to keep feelings at bay. I have a story about my country that has, my whole life, actually been trying to keep fear at bay. I didn't know that. A lot of us are seeing that now, like, oh, I had whole bunches of stories about who we were that are actually starting to really get threatened right now. This story kind of isn't holding up. I've had stories about faith communities and families and government systems. I've had lots of stories about religions, lots of stories, right? And so many of them were designed to keep a feeling at bay, to create one and to keep one down, to create you can feel it, right? A good one up and then a bad one down. Usually pride up, shame down, good up, bad down. You can feel it. Yeah, this is what we do. So pain and what cures pain is just reminding us we have an infinite capacity, right? The mirror and eternity and the ability to cure pain are boundaryless. The nature of our consciousness itself. What a gift. Mary Oliver waking up to her fingerprints and thoughts and earth and water and glorious temporary stuff. Do you feel the affirmation of the word glorious there? Like, it's going, gone. In 100 years, these fingerprints don't exist. Aren't they glorious? Can you feel the response there? How earth affirming that is? It isn't less value because it's going, gone. It's spectacular. It's eternity. It's eternity in the form of something changing. Oh. So finally, Rumi gives us one last line. We are the sweet cold water, and we are the jar that pours. This is a translation, of course, Coleman Barks. So I'm not sure what the Farsi words would have been. Maybe this is quite accurate. Maybe it's an interpretation. I don't know. But the word sweet is right there. Just like Mary Oliver's glorious. Sweet. Can you feel it? The sweet cold water. And the jar that pours. The Sufi tradition, the Islamic tradition that Rumi is part of course, comes from the same roots as our Judeo-Christian. The scriptural roots go back to the same tree, same kind of three-pronged family tree there of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. And so in the Old Testament, we have earthen vessels as a metaphor for the human experience, right? The jars of clay that we are, ashes to ashes, dust to dust. You're made of earth. You're earth, right? She says, Mary Oliver says, I'm made of earth and water. That's right out of the Old Testament. So to refer to oneself as an earthen vessel or a jar of clay is to use a traditional scriptural metaphor for that which is going, gone. I come up from it and then I go back to it, right? They oftentimes will quote this at a funeral, at a graveside. We come up from it and we go back to it. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. The earthen vessel. The jar that pours. So what we see in that from a Buddhist perspective, not that is anymore, it's the same, very same teaching, but I know a lot of you are Buddhist sympathetic, at least, whatever that means, is we go from the experience of separation to the experience of non-separation. You're a little eddy in the river. You're not separate from the river, you are the river, but you're a little eddy, and so you start thinking you're just that, and then eventually the river sweeps you away, and then you're not separate again. No problem. You think you're the wave, and then you're the ocean. You think you're the cloud, and then you're the sky. Don't worry about it. You think you're the fist, and then the hand opens, and you're something else. You think you're your lap, and then you stand up. It's not a problem. You see all those metaphors are just, it's not a problem. This is the shape of eternity. It shows up, and then it shows up, and then it shows up, and then yeah, no problem. So you're the earth, and then you're the earth in the form of a jug, and then you're the earth again. Okay. There's not a problem there. So the reason there's an evolution in these 4 lines that I love so much is that because we have vowed through implication with the 3rd line, we are both pain and what cures pain, we begin to experience the water as sweet. In the 4th line. Pain is temporary. It does not last. What cures pain is eternal. Our thirst is temporary, and yet we still experience the water is so sweet. That meeting of thirst and water, that meeting of thirst and water, the way that they cure one another. It's remarkable, isn't it? In that moment when you're really, really thirsty, and the water touches your tongue, you can feel both. Like this is exactly what is needed right now. There's part of me in that moment that is identified with thirst, and there's a part of me in that moment that recognizes what's arising to meet it is exactly what it needs. There's a moment there. Can you feel it? Where they're both present. And so when your sadness arises today, or your boredom, or your restlessness, or your grief, or your whatever little affliction will show up today in the field of your awareness, it'll be there. That's fine. That's what we sign up for. What I vow to be is I will be the part of consciousness that just meets it exactly as it wants to be met. Right? And physically, that means when my back hurts, I might want to shift a little bit because I'm putting too much strain on that ligament or on that joint. But if it's an emotion, I'm scared, I am sad, I offer you the option of, instead of solving that problem and figuring out what part of you wants it to go away, a belief, a story, that instead maybe the sweet cold water is just your ability to say yes. I say yes to you being here. Not only are you here, but you are here and you are known. I know that you are here. I see that you are here. I feel that you are here. I'm right here. Not aloneness. Then all that's actually happening is offering. I am identified with that which offers the sweet cold water, the jar emptying itself out. There's not an ego agenda. There's instead a relationship with the ego agenda, a kind relationship with the ego agenda, an understanding of the ego agenda. The part of me that always thinks it's separate, that's never quite content, perpetually experiences the fear that comes with the cells of being in a prey animal, a pack animal. There's a ministering to suffering in that moment. There's a ministering to that, curing of pain, that reminds us what we really are, who we really are. There is a relationship with the suffering of the world. Please don't imagine your suffering isn't the suffering of the world. It is, I promise. In fact, if you can find a suffering in the world that isn't yours, I'd love to see it. You can't find it. I promise. That headline that breaks your heart, whose heart is broken? That's you. It's you. Right? So you're ministering to that. You pouring yourself out to that. That affects everything everywhere because it's not separate. That's the Bodhisattva vow, the vow of love. So I thank Rumi for, 800 years ago, something like that, writing those 4 lines. I've been sitting with those for about 15 years now. I expect I'll really start to get it about 15 years from now. So I'll put that retreat on the calendar. Register now. And I thank Mary Oliver, who reminds us certain strict postures accomplishing meditation have a place. There's a beauty in that. I'm biased because I've had a certain strict posture for a long time because it's how I was taught. And I thank her for using words like successful and accomplished in the first paragraph, because that works for a big part of me. And much more deeply, I thank her by the end of her poem to say, just wake up finally. You're made of earth and water, thoughts and fingerprints, and glorious temporary stuff. All that's actually necessary there is a kind relationship. So I think that's as much as I need to offer today. I thank you for your attention. If there was something in that spoke to you, that was about you. If there was nothing in there that spoke to you, that is absolutely fine too. Please don't try to grab onto it. Nevertheless, thank you. Thank you.